All right, let's talk another LSU wide receiver and another likely first rounder as well. It's Mr. Brian Thomas Jr. So Thomas, I found really one of the more interesting players. I think and I'll be curious where you're at with him because I constantly go back and forth on Thomas here and where I should rank him. Kind of pre-draft without a landing spot, and we'll get to where I landed later. But I'll start with the positives for him because you watch him on tape. I find it hard to basically not envision the upside that he'd have in the NFL, considering the size and the speed that he brings to the table, right? 4.33 40 time, 94th percentile. He's got good height at nearly 6'3. He had a 9.97 relative athletic score as well. Like the upside is absolutely there to work out for him in the NFL. You could see him joining a high-end passing offense as their vertical threat and being a weekly, like big play weapon. Then I could also see him joining a team whose offense isn't as ideal, unable to, utilize him as effectively, especially early in his NFL career, and then him not be that weekly fantasy option that we typically hope for out of a first round pick. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, almost his entire route tree, right? Last year, which was his 1 year as a starter, it was go routes and hitches. That's pretty much it. Like he had the occasional crossing route in there, but we're talking far from like a diverse route tree. And it's why part of me is worried that he's going to be kind of the one trick pony in the NFL and only have boom bust fantasy potential. So I, I definitely see the upside. I could get excited for him at times. And then there's other times where I get down on him. So I'm curious, where are you at with Thomas before, I get into some of his numbers here?
I'm in a similar boat to you. So like I think there's a lot to get enamored with, right? You have the height, weight, speed combination there. You mentioned it, like just under 6'3", and I mean to have that kind of length and that kind of speed, just I mean it's done. Like put him on the outside and let him run a go route. You see why he ran so many of them, but like generally just a natural wide receiver, a big catch radius, 89th percentile with his wingspan, 72nd percentile in arm length. Um, I think generally what we saw out of him, a lot of burst. He's a great athlete, but again, like the route tree kind of concerning. Not a refined route runner. I think probably got away with more because of that supreme athleticism, that burst. 1.5 second 10-yard split tells you everything you need to know about the kind of burst he has, and I do think that helped him in a lot of situations. So, do I see all of these physical traits that are really exciting for a wide receiver? Yes. But do I see somebody that's like pro ready as these other wide receiver prospects that we just reviewed? No, and that is why there's such a massive tier break here leading into Brian Thomas as, the consensus wide receiver 4 in this class.
Yeah, I'm with you. Like I could see why he'd be ranked as high as 4, like on our big board specifically as well, right? And then you look at, some of the reasons why he'd be ranked a lot lower, and his production profile is just kind of riddled with red flags, right? Like 1.95 career yards per route run is 28th percentile, 71.5 career receiving grade is 21st percentile. His yards per route run when lined up wide is 1.97. That's just 36th percentile. Even explosive play rate, just 32.3% is 34th percentile, right? So there, I know, he had Malik Neighbors to contend with there. So maybe we could fit, forgive some of the per route numbers a little bit. And like you said, he's nowhere near finished product. So we can expect him to kind of continue developing and hopefully get better. But it is at least concerning that he performed so poorly, I think, relative to prospects past in these key metrics. And as much as I love the speed and I think he can absolutely get better in the NFL, I'm not convinced that it's worth a first round pick, which is where he's expected to go in most mocks. And his mock draft simulator ADP right now is I think 23rd overall. So he's in that range, and his production profile, sure, it puts him closer to probably like a fourth rounder, but obviously taking into account the athletic ability, he's much better than that, but I don't think I'd be looking at him until the second round if I'm an NFL team, to be honest. I don't know. I there's
I
times
think
I'm
what you're getting
optimistic, like I said,
enamored
yeah.
with if you're one of these teams taking him in the first round is the potential, the
Mhm.
upside, the athlete, and
Yeah.
almost reminds me of like a Christian Watson coming out where you knew he had all of the like physical traits to be a top end wide receiver, but doesn't necessarily have the refinement as a route runner, as a um, an NFL player yet. And TBD, I'm not necessarily using Christian Watson as a comp for him. I'm not saying that Christian Watson is the range of outcomes for a player like him, but even maybe similar to like a Quentin Johnston, where,
Mhm.
had a lot of traits that you really like, but you might not necessarily expect a ton out of him immediately coming out of the gate.
Right. Yeah, I think Christian Watson's a good example though, like you said, like how the NFL does fall in love with traits and values them very highly. I mean, if you want, to separate the comp even from the position, like look a couple years ago, Trayvon Walker going first overall, right? Like the NFL fell in love with that upside and that athletic ability. And I think it's going to be the same here with Brian Thomas. Obviously not going to go first overall, but he's going to be drafted highly. And it's because a team is going to fall in love with those traits. And for that reason you can see the upside, but I think there's still some work in progress there with him as an NFL player. So I do worry about potential year one production from Brian Thomas, basically.
Yeah, probably a better, long-term dynasty asset than he's going to be here. But potentially if he lands in a role with a quarterback that can deliver the ball downfield and get him on those go routes and open up an offense, like maybe there's some room there. I just can't envision him year one having a consistent sort of every down role in an offense.